questions that are being asked, I'd like to mostly address, so this is my preference, is questions that affect how you walk. Questions about living this out. What he's always told me is, tell them that if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, they'll be where they're supposed to be. But you need a teacher to teach you what it is you need to be doing. Isaiah.
Thank you, Rabbi. I just want to say thank you because from the time that Steve got up till now, you've answered my questions so thoroughly that I'm just going to go sit down. No, I got a little more, but you did. You really, I'll kind of go through it, I guess, out of respect and the fact that I've been standing here so long. I really, 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 really appreciate you for...
And his first thought is, and it's awesome that I had to stand here so long. You see, that's the way you could see it, right?
No, yeah. Oh, man.
I had to stand here the whole time, too.
Yeah. You do way better than I do, for sure. So in the Christian church, they would... thank you for talking about eschatology at the beginning, the way you addressed that. So many times, people would say, you know, the bride's not where she should be yet, and that all the stuff they would teach about rapture isn't going to happen until that. And we know that. I mean, you kind of hit on it, but in Matthew 24:41, I was reminded of immediately. 42. Watch therefore, for you do not know what hour your master is coming. And know this, that if the master of the house had known what hour the thief would come, he would have watched and not allowed his house to be broken in. Because of this, be ready too. For the Son of Adam is coming at an hour when you do not expect him. Who then is a trustworthy and wise servant whom his master set over his household to give them food in a season? So he's asking, like, who's going to be faithful when you least expect that? So,
Amen.
Yeah, amen. For me, coming out of the charismatic, kind of emotionally led, radical movement, I mean, you really answered all my questions, honestly. But I was going to ask, you know, is it, you already answered this, but I used to do like these self-affirmations out of the Bible, taking the promises, you know, since I'm a believer, then I'm a seed of Abraham, and I'm an heir according to the promise, kind of stuff.
Right.
You answered all of these questions, honestly, but...
then give the mic to somebody else.
Okay. All right. Hey, but no, I just want to ask, is it okay to like build myself up with that?
Only if you're recognizing that not all promises were for everybody.
Yeah.
You can't stand on promises that were never for you. There was lots of promises in your scriptures. Some of them were for specific people, just for that moment, and so you can't just stand on anything that was promised to anybody. There's lots of things promised to everybody, and you certainly can hold on to those, okay?
Yeah.
You just have to be careful, because the church system basically said anything said to anybody you can stand on. Well, you know, I'm standing on the promise to Sarah about having a baby. Well, he promised Sarah the baby, not you, okay? All right, so you can't stand on that one. But there are ones that he said for everybody, and so you certainly can stand on those, okay?
Yeah. Amen. Oh, and just what I gathered too is being honest about where I am in this walk, as well as, I guess, being hopeful that I can get there, you know? So, yeah, amen.
All right, amen. All right, I'm gonna mess everybody up. We're gonna have a little fun moment here, because we haven't had any fun yet, so we'll have some more fun. I told you I wasn't gonna talk eschatology, but after what he mentioned there, the rapture is coming right now. Because rapture is a feeling of intense pleasure or joy. So everybody get excited and have that rapture moment. Yeah. All right? See, so you don't have to wait. You don't have to wait anymore for the rapture. You can have that every morning. You can have it any time during the day. I looked it up. The definition is a feeling of intense pleasure or joy. So you can have that right now. You can have it anytime, so stop waiting for it. okay? Let's stop waiting for it. Let's have that every day. Not this whole he's taking us away and all this other left behind nonsense. I'm talking about the actual word means intense pleasure and joy. You can have that about him. In other words, how would you feel right now if this was the moment and you were hearing the words, well done, good and trustworthy servant, enter into the kingdom? How would you feel? Yeah! Well, start off your day with that. I mean, you know. By the way, all of you that did all that yelling and screaming, do you feel any difference in your body? Almost like a tingling and there's a whole different energy, right? And a whole different emotion just from that. You can trigger all of this in yourself. And there wasn't anything fake about it. You guys are genuinely excited about that moment. And so you can motivate yourself with that. It's really a powerful thing. All right, Rob?
Okay, from Earl Lee in Lethbridge says, do I put any stock in Canadian Constitution and its stated freedom as a covenanted person? It says, do I support the protests, or could that be asked for any country? And how do I make peace with living now in all this turmoil?
All right, so 3 different questions. You try to sneak into one. I get it. That's okay. That was sort of Janet or Steve worthy. Okay. All right. I'll answer the last one first, which is how do you have peace? Listen to the teaching, peace in the world, not his. Okay, I cover that as the whole main point of that teaching. And I know you've listened to it, Earl, but just kind of go back and listen to it again. It's important that you get that. We should be able to have peace in any circumstance. What did Paul tell you? He says, I've learned to be at peace with all men under all circumstances. Okay? Because the circumstance should not matter. You should be able to be and feel what you want to be and feel no matter what's happening around you. Because all of those things are choices. So let's not let the circumstance cause the situation or cause the way you feel or cause whatever. It is what it is. And then as far as the whole idea of being a citizen and where you are in Canada and some of the things that are going on, look, Caesar has its rules. We are submitted to those rules, except if those rules cause us to break Torah, then we have to stand up against them. And that may mean getting arrested someday or something. We know people personally that were growing up in countries where they ended up in jail for trying to keep Shabbat because it was against the law to not work or not send your children to school or whatever it was on Saturday. And so I know people personally that had spent time in jail for keeping the Sabbath. But you have to stand up for those things. Now, if your country allows for protest, which almost all of them do, and you feel that you want to protest, then protest. But that's still following their rules, because in the rules it allows for those things. So if you want to be a part of a voice speaking up against something, then go ahead, speak out against it. I don't have any issue with that. It's part of the right to do that, okay? All right, so that being said, I think that pretty much answered the 3 things that you asked there. Okay, back out here to Gerardo.
How you doing? Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Put the mic right up by your mouth.
Yes, sir. I believe everyone here asked all the questions, and honestly, you answered all my questions as well. But I think quick on my feet, so I repackaged a question for you.
See, I'm being sneaky today. As you're waiting in line, I'm answering your questions before I get to you.
Yes, sir. So out of everything that everybody said, I mean, if I can recap Steve, Brian from earlier, I mean, everybody, I mean, those are all my questions. You know what I'm saying? So how is there room here for me?
How's what?
How is there room here for me? In a sense, like, not what I want to know what you're doing in a sense, but like, we talked a little bit, right? But I got a lot of ideas, you know? And I mean, I'm not just a pick-up chair and move them around and set this up. I mean, I got investments. I can put some money on you, with you. What do you want to do? But at the same time, I've always been told I've been wrong. And I'm not trying to bring all emotional feelings into this, but like, you're sitting here screaming. Oh, by the way, great example, Esther, from like 2-3 weeks ago, Esther, you switching a couple things over and the energy and all that. Kudos. I mean, congratulations to you. It takes a man to do that because, boy, listen, I ain't doing it. But what you just did here, you always been told that you're wrong for that. You can't scream. You can't holler. You can't express yourself. Man, bro, like, I felt like pudding with unflavor. What are you talking about? How is this okay? I don't see it. I mean, I believe you because I see you doing it, but you and I are two different people, sir. And I mean, I'm gonna tell you like this too. I'm a grown man. I'm tired of getting my butt kicked by you. It seems like everything ever given to me, business plan, rent, and something, you here. So what do I need to do? And I felt like you telling me to do something, and maybe not you, maybe him type stuff, but I don't know what you want from me, and I feel like you're talking in code. So if you can just clarify for me, I appreciate it. So, and another one too. In order to be selfish, do I need to start being selfish? Because if I'm always thinking about you or someone else and I can't think about myself, am I really helping the next person? Which is kind of a little contradiction or oxymoron to what you said earlier. But if you can just help me clarify, I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
All right, no problem. Another guy trying to sneak in 2 questions. Okay, so, all right. So the first, let me answer the second one, which is about the selfish thing. You need to understand, and this is going to be challenging for some of you. Selfish is when it's all about you. That doesn't mean you're not generous and helping and giving. You can be a very selfish, generous person. That might not make sense, okay? But selfish are the people that when they see something that doesn't involve them and they need to be involved in it because it's about them, they don't like it or they want to involve themselves in some way. That's actually a selfish thought. When you impose yourself into something that really doesn't need you. That doesn't mean you're not generous. Some of the most selfish people I know are the most generous people I know. They'll give and they give. Matter of fact, they're selfishly generous because they'll involve themselves thinking they're helping when they're not helping. When the person doesn't want the help and it's not actually helpful. But they insert themselves because they want to help, but it's still about them. And you gotta be careful about it. Are you doing it for the other person or are you doing it because you believe that's what they need and that's the right thing and now it's about you again? It's a tricky thing. It's not real simple, okay? Because I've had to tell a few people they're selfish and they got real angry with me because they're very generous people. They're always giving, but they're also giving in places they don't need to be. And they get themselves in trouble because they're inserting themselves into things that, I was just trying to help. I don't know why it went so badly because nobody wanted you to do that at that time. Oh, but I was just trying to keep them out of this or this from happening. I said, yes, but maybe it needed to happen. So then you got involved, and now you're in trouble, and you don't know why, and all you were trying to do was help. So be careful of the motivator, all right? See, as a parent especially, you may want to jump in and insert yourself in something your child's doing because if they don't do well or it goes badly, you are not constantly thinking this, but it will reflect on you because they will know that's your child. And so you're trying to prevent you from looking bad, or your spouse. Because you're afraid your spouse is going to make you look bad. But you'll say to the spouse, oh no, I'm just trying to keep you from looking bad. And the spouse is thinking, I don't care what anybody thinks that I do. And so it then becomes about you, okay? It then becomes about you. And so you gotta be really careful with that. It's not coming necessarily from a wrong place, all right? So I don't want you to misunderstand it. So I think that's kind of what Gerardo's talking about. That idea of being selfish. I think it's about me. Not meaning I want it all and it's only for me. That's what we normally think selfish is, that everything's for me. I want it all. It's all for me. No, it's about me is the selfish thing I'm talking about. It's about how I feel about it, how I want it to be, and how I need it to be. And then you insert yourself in some place you really don't belong. Okay? Now, what you need to learn is how to be a consultant advisor by invitation. In other words, you can say to somebody, I've got a thought if you want it, and let them say yes or no, or let them come and seek you out. And if they don't, or if they don't say yes, then you keep your mouth shut and stay out of it. Even if you're right and it goes badly, they needed to experience that themselves. Okay? Child has a job. The child's supposed to be at work at a certain time, they're still asleep. So you go and wake them up. Well, don't do that. Let them be late. Let them learn a lesson. Let them realize that they should have plugged their phone in. Let them whatever it is. But no, you want to rescue. Stop. That's the selfish person's always trying to rescue somebody that doesn't want to be rescued or doesn't need to be rescued, but they need to learn something. Okay? So it's a hard term because we normally think of selfish meaning that it's something that's to benefit you. But you know what? It is to benefit you when you're still trying to help somebody and that doesn't really need to be helped because you want to do it. You want to think that, that you're doing that kind of thing. I know it's a little complicated to kind of reconcile those two ideas. But a lot of you are the most generous people I know, and you get yourself in the most selfish predicaments because you insert yourself where you don't belong. But you're doing it with a good heart. You're trying to help. Well, I just figured then, if I didn't do it, then the person would have this other bad thing happen. Well, maybe it needs to happen. How are they going to grow if they never make mistakes and suffer for them? Okay? Now, when they suffer, you can go over to them as an advisor and say, by the way, can I recommend this and this so that next time maybe you don't end up in a problem? Okay? And maybe they'll listen, maybe they won't. Especially for you with teenagers, you need to start really getting out of the mom and dad role into consultant role. Stop mothering, especially the mothers are the worst, because it's so hard for them to stop mothering their children, okay? They don't need a mother beyond a certain point. You will always be their mother, but they don't need to be mothered, okay? Where you actually take care and provide and do everything for them. They can't grow if you do that. Let them make their own food. Let them make their own mistakes. Let them wake themselves up. I've had children come to me all upset about not being able to get work done and they're going to get an F on something else. I said, fine, so you get an F. I don't care. I went through high school. I did all those things myself. That's your time. Okay? Because I'll have people say, my wife will say, oh, but then they'll get a bad grade. Well, then let them get a bad grade. It was their grade, their choice. Why do we have to rescue everybody from everything? I'm not having a problem if someone asks me to rescue them. Then I can decide if I'm just going to give them advice, let it happen, or rescue them. Don't just go in and rescue people, if you understand what I'm saying. Unless it's really life, death, really dangerous, something horrible, which is 99% of the time not the case, okay? Let people make mistakes. Almost everything they do isn't going to be like long-term horrible effect on them. Matter of fact, it may be a really long-term positive effect on them because they will have experienced it and learned something. Much more powerful than you telling them. Let them wake up late and miss work and get in trouble one time and see how good that works on them for the next time. See, the boomer generation knows what that looked like for us. It was called, we got to switch, and we never did that thing again. See, but we don't do that with the kids anymore. I'm not recommending it, by the way. I'm just saying, when you got a pounding, my generation and older, you didn't do that again. You probably did other dumb things, but as soon as you got caught and messed, you never made that mistake twice. Right? All you boomers and older, you know what I'm talking about? Or boomers at heart? and I love the way the millennials and all the other younger generations mock us, yeah, except that we're not the ones sitting on couches without jobs wondering how we're going to live in the future. Okay? All right? And so just kind of keep that in mind, all right? Keep that in mind. All right. And then the other thing that, trying to think of the two things that you talk about the selfish thing, and then the other thing was, about the correction. Look, and by the way, you have to understand, Gerardo and I have a really good relationship. So in case some of you don't know him, you might be thinking, he's tired of me kicking him in the butt and all this other stuff. Well, he's really talking about how does he get to the place where he doesn't need that and we have a relationship and how can we fix those things? Because he's not trying to say I'm picking on him, right? Okay? So, and then you couldn't see him on the camera, but he said right. Okay, so look, the thing is this. You need to have a relationship with somebody who can give you a boot when you need it, and then you fix those areas eventually, and then those are not areas that's happening anymore, but there's other areas. There should always be somebody who can grab a hold of you and say, that's not the way to do this. You need to do this differently, otherwise it's not gonna work, it's just gonna keep blowing up in your face. But again, we're not rescuing, he comes to me, we have these conversations, okay? I don't go to him and insert myself, all right? And so the answer is if you don't like having the boot, make the changes and you won't keep getting it in those areas. But that's not always easy to do. We tend to be really slow to make those changes, and then it happens again, and then you come back for counsel, and the person looks at you like, there you go, and then you get the boot again, all right? Look, I've had to tell some people, and you might not like hearing this, and I'm not proud of it necessarily, who said, well, this is the reason and that's the reason for all these things going wrong in the life. And I've had to look and said, no, that's not it. And they go, really? What's the problem then? I said, you're stupid. And they look at me like, what? You could ask Elder Billy. I've actually done that more than once, probably more than 10 times. And it's because we keep being foolish and we act stupid. What is stupid? When you know better and you keep doing the wrong thing over and over again. Okay, that's crazy actually, but it's stupid. Okay, when you want to point your finger at everything outside being the problem, that's stupid. Okay, that's foolish. It will never get it done. If you come to me and everything is this person did in that situation, in this circumstance, and all these excuses, you're never going to fix anything because everything's outside is the problem. The problem's always here. The solution's always here, inside. I don't care how you grew up. I could show you people that grew up worse than you that did better than where you are now because they didn't do what you did, which is make excuses to justify where you are. Well, I had such a horrible upbringing. Everybody had a horrible upbringing. Well, not as bad as mine. I know people had it worse. Whatever yours is, I promise you, I know people had it worse. But it's the choices you make. You can make yourself a victim. There we go. There's the word that really is the problem. You could be the victim or you could be the hero. Be the hero in your own life. Okay? Don't be the victim. All right. We on live stream? We're out here. Live stream.
Paul Clearwater. So this is Amanda in Canada. I'm wondering if it's okay to plant a garden this year because I've heard different opinions on which is the Shmitah year.
All right. Nobody knows. Plant your garden. If you want to follow the 7-year cycle with your stuff that you plant, you're certainly welcome to. I've known people to do that and get incredible results by leaving the land to just, once they plant, let it grow. And then basically what you're letting is whatever it grows to go back into the ground because you're not harvesting it and that kind of thing. And that ends up fertilizing and helping it to grow better, et cetera, in the future. You certainly can do all that. Nobody knows if this is the Shmitah year or when the Shmitah year is. I know there are people out there claiming they do, but they don't, okay? And so we don't know when the Jubilees are, and all those guys out there like Jonathan Cahn and the rest of them that just keep conning us with their books and their CDs and DVDs. And then it doesn't play out like they claim. They don't give any refunds either, if you notice that, okay? And so don't worry about all that. We don't know when the Shmitah Jubilee years are, all right? From tithing purposes, as far as using the Shmitah cycle for tithing, I always instruct people to start counting your 7-year cycle from the year you first know to start doing it, which means that whatever year you start tithing, then the 3rd year is the 3rd year tithe based on your particular cycle, all right? Okay, Ben.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
So I had an idea a couple of weeks ago while I was taking a shower, and it actually had to do with about health.
Okay, that's more information than we actually needed.
It was the idea of our walk being like a BMI. So a BMI, whether you're healthy or not, will determine your height and weight and stuff like that. And ultimately, it comes down to what you put into your body or what you're doing. So like our walk, whatever we're putting into our body, it could be bad or good depending on how you look at it.
Right.
But like if we're doing things that we want and that aren't good for us, it's like destroying our body, and our BMI in a sense would be bad.
All right, but BMI is body mass index. I just want people to understand what that is.
Right.
Okay.
But if you're walking out the walk consciously and always putting into your body what you should be according to Torah, then overall you're going to be healthy and always good. So that's just an idea I had. And yeah.
All right, so that's more a comment than a question. So he's just using an analogy that worked for him, and it may work for you, okay?
Yeah, I just wanted to check if that was like
correct. Listen, any analogy like that, if it works for you, to understand like the metaphor of what I do to my body, okay, so I'm gonna check out, what I'm doing to move it and keep it physically in shape, what I'm gonna do as far as feeding it and everything, and how that's gonna bring the result. The same thing with our mind. So if that works for you, then that's perfect, okay? Rob?
Harrison Bryce, is it okay to heat and eat pre-cooked frozen food on Shabbat, like frozen waffles, frozen meals, et cetera, et cetera.
All right. The way that we have basically made the right ruling, so to speak, like a Deuteronomy 17 type of thing about food on Shabbat. I have, and through the leadership in our discussions, we have concluded that anything that you can eat in its current state, but it would just it'd be more enjoyable if it was warm, you can heat up or warm up on Shabbat. Okay, so something that is frozen, you can't actually eat it in that state. Okay? So that's involving a whole lot more. All right, so if you had some leftover food in the refrigerator that you just need to warm up, and you could have eaten it cold, that would be different, okay? Just warming up something that you certainly would eat or could eat cold, but it has to be something that you could or would eat cold. Doesn't need to be heated up, all right? So let's say you have leftover pizza too. I've eaten cold pizza. Cold pizza is great. I may prefer it to be a little warmer. You can warm it up. That's not cooking. Okay, we're not cooking there. But if it's frozen and you're warming it up, but you can't eat it frozen, all right? That's a little bit different, okay? It's a little bit different. Okay. Grayson.
Is it okay if I have a comment on what you were talking about when being able to choose your emotions?
Sure.
So, as someone who's been carving out time and working towards that area of my life, I just want to say that everything you said today, I absolutely love, and I think it's so profoundly true and powerful, and that if everybody really applied that, they could really see true, profound changes in their life. And when I've been going through this, there's a lot of times where something will happen, and I'll just instantly feel that emotion in my body, and I don't have time to make that choice. And instead of looking at it it goes through an entire week of me not being able to make that choice, and just instantly seeing that emotion, instead of being oh wow, I wasn't able to make that choice, and I haven't been able to make that choice. Everything that Rabbi said, I guess that's not true for me, that's not me, and then internalizing that, instead of being able to look at it I wasn't able to make this choice, and I'm feeling this emotion because I've spent my entire life basically being programmed to think and feel this way, and being able to recognize that feeling isn't me, and it's not the person that I'm working towards becoming, but it's my past that I'm working towards leaving, that you're able to work towards getting to the point where you're able to make that choice. And instead of people being discouraged by not being able to see that choice being made right away, that is something that you have to work really, really, really hard towards, and it's going to take time. And I didn't want people to be discouraged by them not seeing that ability to make that choice right away.
All right, so actually I've got a really little additional guidance for you, okay? What you can do in the meantime, because I understand what he's saying. He's saying well, what if you're failing at it, you don't really seem to find that time, etc. So let's do step one. Step one is, instead of trying to create the space, which you're going to try to do anyway, but it's going to be a little challenging to create that space. So what I want you to do in the first phase of this is watch yourself. Be aware of yourself when you're in that negative place. You responded. Something happened and you got angry. The faster you can recognize, oh wow, that's interesting. I just got really angry over this. Then you may be able to turn that off or turn it down much more quickly over time to eventually creating the space to not do it. So the first step would be you have a negative emotional response, you're aware of it, and then you choose to stop being in that place instead of staying in that place, okay? So step one would be a heightened, and you've heard me teach this many times over the last couple of years, a heightened awareness of yourself. Like you're watching yourself, I always put my hand like I'm over my own shoulder watching myself, right? And then if I have something happen and I get angry, I should be looking at myself going, wow, why are you losing your mind over that? And then I could choose to recognize that doesn't make sense. I'm going to stop doing that, okay? And eventually have it happen quick enough, because it may take me a minute or two to even realize that I'm angry or upset or whatever it is, and you could be sad, depressed, hurt feelings, whatever your negative emotion is. Mine tends to be, my one negative emotion is I get angry, all right? But whatever yours is, if you start recognizing it and then realizing you need to shift the way you're focused, and you can start doing that sooner and sooner to the point where you're doing it right when it's happening, okay? But you got to start off by first recognizing, not having the other person look at you like, why are you yelling? Well, actually, if they do that, you should be looking at yourself like, oh, yeah, why am I yelling? Instead of going, because you did, blah, blah, blah. No, they did whatever, but that's not a reason why you have to yell. You don't have to, or get hurt, or upset, or sad, or cry, or whatever it is you're doing, right? So maybe somebody points it out is really the first step. But you should start to be aware of yourself, how you feel, and then you can ask the question, why? Is this really what I should be feeling? Is this necessary to respond in this way? And then you can say, that's interesting. Maybe I need to let that go and not be so upset about this thing. And hopefully you can start doing that in shorter intervals to the point where you're doing it right when it's happening. Okay, does that help? Is that a little easier, a little better? Okay? All right, Rob?
Okay, from the Miller fam, says, regarding Shabbat, for introverted people who are easily drained by social interactions, Shabbat gatherings are more a drain than restorative. How do we get around that?
All right. I think I addressed this earlier. So what? So what if they're more of a drain? Drain, and by the way, when you say they're a drain, it's a perspective thing. You could choose to be energized by people or drained by them. Okay, let's ask the better question, which is, why do you feel like people drain you? What do you think the answer is to that? Because you perceive that it's an effort, which is why you're tired and drained, to actually interact with people. You're not comfortable with it. You don't really want to do it. You don't really feel like you know what to do when doing it in the first place. So everything is exhausting. Instead of being more excited about it and allowing it to just happen the way it happens and being very happy to just sit there and just watch people. You don't have to interact with everybody, but you can just be there. Look, if you want to be in the forever kingdom, it's not going to be like a cave by yourself as a hermit. All right? And so, I talked this already, and I know the question may have been older. You're being selfish. In other words, it's about you. I'm drained by people. I'm energized by people. Well, no, you choose to be. You don't choose. I mean, you don't just naturally, people aren't just naturally drained or energized by people. All right? I'm neither of them. I find it that I get very energized at times, or I can be worn out and exhausted, but either way, you're not going to know. You'll never see it on my face or my behavior, because it's really an internal thing in me. It has nothing to do with you. Okay? You can choose to feel life filling into you being around people who, like you, are trying to end up in the kingdom. Okay? You can choose that. Or you can find interacting with people who are imperfect exhausting. All of us could choose that. I don't know anybody out there, and I'm not saying I'm the only one, but I don't really know anybody that counsels as much as I do from a ministry point of view. And I can tell you, that could be exhausting. Could be. To the point where you would just, look, I've been here, and let's assume this is next week on a Zone 2 week. I would have been here since 10 this morning. Today I was here closer to 12:30, okay? It's now almost 5:30. So for 5 straight hours, I've been dealing with and giving to people. And guess what? We're going to eat, and after we eat, I'm going to counsel. And I could just say, I'm tired, I'm worn out, I don't want to deal with people anymore. But that would be a selfish thing to do. Instead of thinking, I need Abba to give me the energy to give the people what they need because somebody needs me. And even if you're an introverted person, people need you just to be there. You know, this room would look very different with only 10 people in it, and the rest of you all at home watching on the screen because you're all introverted. Or you could sit here quietly like some of you are, because there are introverts in this room, but you're here in the room. Okay? And so your presence adds something to this. Okay? And so all of these things are choices, whether you're drained or energized by people. Some of you would think that I'm energized by people because you see me go into a group of people and I can light up. I'm energized by need. Okay, you need something and I can provide it, that energizes me. All right? nobody needs anything from me, then I'm not drained, I just not energized, if you understand what I'm saying. Because I'm always looking to do and give and provide. I don't impose it, but if somebody needs it, I'm excited, I get something I can do. That's my job, is to serve and to provide. And so, if we're gonna go out and eat, and I talked about how that's not always my favorite thing, is because I'm not going to be social. I'm not really a very social creature. You may see I'm very extroverted, and I am very extroverted. I'm just not very social, okay? But if I'm gonna go out and somebody needs something, and I can talk and counsel and share advice, or, the other night we were out and I happened to have a lot of sales training background, and I gave a little quick, sales seminar to a couple of guys. Somebody needed something I could provide. I was fully energized by that. But I can choose how I feel about it. I could also choose whether or not you know. You don't have to show everybody that you're sad, depressed, and upset, and hurt, and everything else. You can keep that inside and don't have to mess everybody else up with it. Okay? Now, if you're keeping it inside but you still need to deal with it, then come counsel. Let that person who's designed to hear all that work with you, instead of walking around like you're sucking on a pickle. All right? You don't need to do that. Okay? So for those of you that are introverted, we want you here, we love you, and you know what? Stretch, come out of your shell. And I know it's possible because we have one young lady here that I've been working with now for a bunch of years who is very quiet, very shy, very white personality, the color code thing. And she has way come out of her shell since being here, making the effort and choosing to be more outgoing. And so you can do it, all right? You know what I'm talking about, okay? And so, but it's a choice. She came to me one day and said, I'm tired of always being this way. I want to be more outgoing and less afraid to interact and more confident. And so, if that's your choice and you want it and you believe it can happen, guess what? You can do it. You can. All right? Maybe you'll never be the person up in front of big crowds of people in the life of the party, whatever an extrovert would be like. But certainly you can move more towards the center between extrovert and introvert. Okay? You certainly can do that. All right. Okay, so Ashley.
I have a two-part question.
I was very tempted to say, can you hear me? But I didn't want to do that.
I didn't feel anything come out because I can feel me in the air.
She's got a hearing problem, so it just was a joke. Okay, go ahead.
It was the weirdest thing. I couldn't feel myself talk. Two-part question. One, raising children, how do you know if their bubble's popped or if it's just them being around everyone?
You won't know till they're older.
Okay.
And your children are very young. You won't really know if somebody's bubble popped until, get ready for this, until they're making their own choices. Okay? That's the only way to know, is to watch them make choices. That's why he says to us that making decisions is why we're here. He's watching you make choices. That's how he knows. Well, he also knows if you popped your bubble, he knows whether or not you embraced it. He can pop your bubble and you can just reject it. Okay? But your children are too young for that. So you've got to wait till like 18, 19, 20. And even then, maybe you won't know, because they might still come because it's part of their habit. But when they are ready to choose what they really want to do and they feel like they can make their own choices, that's when you'll know. Okay?
And with that, how do you train up a child when the child is more in Yahweh than you are? I think you know who I'm talking about.
All right. Look, the best way to train up a child is by living the example. All right? Let them see you walking it out. Don't worry about so much how you raise them up with Torah. If their bubble's not popped, you can teach them all the Torah you want. That's not going to make the difference. But when their bubble gets popped, they'll remember what they heard and saw, what they heard and learned, but more what they saw. Okay? And whether they're ready to embrace the bubble popping will also have to do with how much you showed them the benefit of all this. Because if you walk this out, or claim this, and don't really walk it out right, they're going to look at you like, well, it didn't benefit you. Why would I want to do it? If you can't show them that this is a blessing, if you can't show them how this is a benefit, why would they want to do it? Abba didn't say to just do this because he said so. He said, do this because it will benefit you. You will be blessed by it. If your children can't see it as a blessing, because you don't see it as a blessing, you don't act like it's a blessing, then they're not going to get excited about it either. All right? Okay, we're almost to 5:30. Let's try one more live stream, and then we'll come back with Pete.
All right, from Taylor Olivia, is it bad for me to have expectation to not mess up? I'm always feeling like I'm having irrational thoughts about succeeding, like obsessing over ways to guarantee success. Should I be having a different relationship with failure?
Okay. I don't know. Again, the question was a little bit all over the place, so I don't want to assume too many things. But let me just say this about failure. Stop looking at failure the way the world has taught you, etc. Failure are simply lessons learned, okay? And some of them are necessary lessons learned. Some of them were avoidable, and you can learn the lesson saying, I should have avoided that because I was warned about it, I was counseled about it, I did it anyway, okay? So don't be afraid of failure. Don't be overly concerned when you have failure. You cannot succeed without failure. You can't. You cannot just succeed, and never fail. Matter of fact, you can't really succeed if you haven't failed at all, because then you can't learn what you needed to learn to really succeed. Because when you fail is when you go, oh, that didn't work. I need to make an adjustment. And those adjustments are what lead to success. So yes, we should all be looking at failure differently. All right? All the most successful people in whatever aspect of life there is, we're all people that looked at failure in a different way than you do. Okay? You must embrace failure as a necessary part of the journey. Not that you're excited about failing, but you can say, that was an experience that I learned from, hopefully, that I now know exactly what not to do to end up where this place is that I didn't want to be. So now I'm going to make a few adjustments, and hopefully I'll end up in a different place. And maybe you end up still in a failure, but not quite in success, but it's closer. And then you go make another adjustment. And you keep making adjustments until you get the result you're looking for. Now, there's, of course, two ways to benefit from failure, other people's and your own. It's much better to use other people's, but that's you choosing to believe that what they did didn't work. See, in our selfish, stubborn ego and pride, we think, well, it didn't work for them, but it'll work for me. I can go do this dumb thing, and it won't blow up in my face. And then it does. This is especially for you teenagers whose parents keep telling you, I lived it, I did it, and it went bad for me. If you do it, it'll go bad for you. And you're thinking, oh, no, I'm different. I'm smarter. Oh, goodness. Okay? All right? And so, here, I'm going to read you something. Give me a second. This comes from Socrates. Doesn't matter who it came from. He says, smart people learn from everything and everyone. Average people from their experiences. Stupid people already have all the answers. So let's put this to failure. Smart people learn from everything, not only but from other people's experiences. You don't have to have the experience. You can learn from somebody else's. If I tell you such and such a thing won't work and you believe me, and then you don't do that because you know, then you avoided doing it yourself and learning from your own lesson. An average person is going to have to do it themselves and have it blow up in their own face. Okay, and a foolish, stupid person is going to just think they already know everything. And they're not going to even learn from their failures. They'll just keep stubbornly plowing forward without realizing it doesn't work. There's wisdom in all that. I don't care who the source was, it's actually very wise. It's these are the kinds of things that you really have to embrace. And so, yes, we definitely need to look at failure differently, okay? All right, Mr. Pete, you're the last one.
Thank you, Rabbi. And in line with what you said, I think all of us would agree that you seem to have all the answers, but I don't think any of us think you're stupid.
No, wait, let's clarify that. The stupid person thinks they have all the answers, okay? I confidently know I will be given the answers when the question gets asked. Do you understand what I'm saying? I learn as much as you do when you ask the questions, because sometimes I have no idea what the answer is going to be, because I've never been asked it before, which happens occasionally. At this point, most of the things people ask I've been asked before, but when that happens, I'm ready for him to share with me what the answers are. The stupid person thinks they already know everything. You can't teach them anything. They can't learn anything. Okay? Go ahead, Pete.
So what I've been wrestling with and my thinking has been changing on how to look at the stories that are in the Bible. And part of that was reinforced by listening to Fear of Yahweh on the way up, where you talked about the part where the Israelites are at the Red Sea and they don't see any way out and there's imminent destruction. They're beyond scared. And Moshe tells them just to stand still and see the deliverance of Yahweh. And the lesson in that is that when we think all is lost and we're totally in despair, that if we will just be quiet and allow him to work, he will work. And so it's not about the nuts and bolts about how many people were there or how many chariots were involved. It goes beyond that. And it's the same to me, and I take that, extend that to 2 Kings chapter 4, where the widow is being threatened with her two sons being taken into slavery. And she goes to Elisha, who tells her to take what little oil she has in a jar and borrow as many jars as she can and take the oil she has to fill up those jars, and that eventually takes care of her, which I don't take that to be a story about God giving you a lot of oil. I think the idea is when you're in despair and you're feeling depressed and think that things are real bad, maybe what you do is you do for others. You fill up their jars. You go to help other people. And so that's kind of the way my approach is to looking at these stories to see what is hidden in there that I can learn that will benefit me and how to deal with life. So the question I wanted to come up and ask you about is in Judges chapter 11 with Yiptah's daughter, where he promises that if Yahweh will deliver, that he will sacrifice whoever comes out the door, and it just happens to be his daughter. Well, that to me that's a horrible story because he ends up doing it. So I'm wondering if it's right to look at that story, not for it literally happening, but maybe the lesson there is be very careful about trying to bargain with the Father. That the bargain with the Father is contained in the covenant. That's all he asks of us. And for us to promise more than that really puts us at risk.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is where the vows chapters come into play, and Yeshua simply saying, look, let your yes be yes and your no be no. You don't have to emphasize it by bringing as Yahweh lives into it and making some big public thing and then committing yourself to something you're now trapped in, okay? And so there's a lot of lessons in there for that. With the widow and the same thing with the apostles, believe it or not, I would say with the fishes and the loaves, it was the obedience and belief of those involved, okay, where they did what was told. Yeshua told the disciples to go ahead and take the fish and the loaves, right, and go ahead and then start to feed everybody, and the basket's never emptied. The woman was told to take her oil and fill all these jars with it. She still had to go get the jars, and she's looking at how much she's got, and she knows she didn't have enough, and yet she did it anyway. Okay? And that, to you guys, has to be the biggest lesson, I think, that we can put in all the things we've been talking about today is, if you have faith and belief, even if you can't see it, but you trust that you're getting it from the right source, you do it anyway. This is part of counsel. I've got people here can tell you that they've counseled with me, and at times they completely didn't understand or disagreed, or they didn't agree with what I said, but they did it anyway, and it all worked out. You don't have to be able to see it. Like when they were at the sea, they didn't see the parting of the sea as the answer. We all know that because we've read the story so many times. But I wish I could remember reading it for the first time and wondering, what's going to happen? What? They're stuck, okay? But you know what Moses was told first? He said, go through. Of course, he still had to wait for the sea to split, but he said, take them forward. Yeshua said, go out and start feeding them. There'll be enough. Elisha told her, fill the jars. But she had to go get the jars. Even though she's sitting there going, this is nuts, this is crazy, I don't have enough to fill all those jars, right? But you do it anyway, and it works. And that's belief. And that's the evidence of belief through action, right? through belief, she went and got all those jars. And you're sitting there, we look at us today going, if I told you to do that, you'd be like, I don't have enough to fill the jars with. Where's that going to come from? So why are you worried about it? Just follow directions. If it's coming from the right place, you should trust it and that kind of thing. Just follow directions. And if you do, it works. Of course, your job is to find the right place to get the information from in the first place. She went to a prophet. And so when he told her what to do, she just did what he told her. Because she trusted that the source was the right source. From him, from the father to the prophet to her. Okay? All right. Anyway, excellent job today, everyone.